Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Texas State Board of Examiners of Professional Counselors. Today is Friday, January 30th, 2026 at 9:03 a.m., and we're meeting in person this morning at the George H.W. Bush Building in Austin. I'm Stephen Hallbauer. I'm a public member. I'm the board chair. We'll hand down here to my left, and we'll move across. Brian, introduce yourself.
Brian Evie from Wichita Falls. I'm a professional member.
Good morning. My name's Elisa Chan, and I'm doing you.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Muna. I am from Texas A&M University, Central Texas.
Good morning, Dr. Janie Stubblefield, and I am a professional member.
Dr. Christopher Taylor, Vice Chair, professional member.
Good morning. I'm Loretta Bradley. I'm a professional member. I live in Lubbock, Texas, and teach at Texas Tech.
Good morning. I'm Nadia Stewart. I live in Round Rock, Texas, and I'm a public member.
Thank you, Board. I'll note the excused absence of public member Corey Rose. That gives us an eight board members here today, and that will certify our quorum. Christina, staff introductions, please.
Yes, good morning. Christina DeLuna, Board Administrator for the LPC Board. We also have McGregor Monk working our IT background. Brenda Skiff is online, our Staff Services Officer. Patrick Hyde, our General Counsel. Robert Romig, our Deputy Executive Director. And Daryl Spinks, the Executive Director.
Thank you, Christina. Stakeholder representatives here today that would like to introduce themselves. Good morning and welcome. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Carrie Proctor, and I am representing the Texas Association of Counselor Educators and Supervisors.
Good morning, Carrie.
And I'm Rhonda Belders. I'm an LPCS, and I'm representing my own practice and the things that I need to do in order to maintain my own license.
Okay. Welcome.
And those behind me are some of my associates, and they're here for the first time to learn more about what we do here.
Welcome. It's great to see you. Anybody else? Okay. We'll move forward. There are no changes to the order of the agenda today. Just as a general note from me, it's probably been a tough week weather-wise for most of us. So, Board, thanks for making it here in person today. And those here in person in our audience, thanks for coming down. Go ahead and move on to item number 3. That's public comment. Christina, will you get us going?
Yes, good morning. Okay, so we did have one public comment that was emailed that was in your board packet materials. For those that are online and would like to provide public comment, please do the raise hand feature in Zoom, and we will first hear from the individuals that are here in person. The first person we'll hear from is Philip Crum.
Good morning, everybody. Name's Philip Crum, or Joe Citizen. I'm co-founder of AMP. I've been thinking about what I wanted to say today for over a month, and I thought that given the current lack of 3-alarm issues, I'd start by saying how much Kathleen and I appreciate what the BHEC staff and all 4 boards have managed to accomplish in the past 5.5 years. Now, time doesn't permit an exhaustive list, but I've always gotten the very strong impression that Brenda Schiff, Christina DeLuna, and Sarah Faschels all have the same job description, and it reads, keep Daryl out of the weeds. Apparently they're pretty good at it because they're still here, and so is Daryl. He's captained the sinking ship he inherited, plugged all the holes, fought off some pirates, and has all crew members working from the same sheet music. Pardon the mixed metaphors, but it takes a special character and persona to do his job, and he makes it look easy. There's not enough Dr. Pepper in the world to get me to do what you do. Then there's his legal team, the ones we get to see, at least Robert Romick and Patrick Hyde. What a Herculean job these guys do every day, making sure that what the boards want to do comports with state law to keep the ship from running aground again. Tasked with interfacing with licensees, I really am amazed at how they so patiently and professionally conduct themselves. Two sharp young men providing clear, transparent answers, guidance, and massive patience, even when answering the same question for the 87th time. We've seen a large shift in both the LPC and MFT boards and how they approach issues. I believe a lot of that shift is due to the leadership of LPC board presiding member Stephen Halbar, who appears to have the safety of Joe Citizen front and center once again, along with a desire to limit new rules and avoid regulation bloat. We're very pleased to see the public members of all four boards beginning to take an active role in speaking up and holding the professional members accountable. I mention all this not for points of any kind, but simply because what you do is a thankless job, and I want you to know there are a lot of us out here who see you, we see what you're doing, and we appreciate it. Sanity is slowly returning to this profession, but we have a long, long way to go, and it will come with its own unique people problems none of us have even thought of yet. That return is hard to see sometimes, especially if you spend any time at all online. But I think with the group of people I just mentioned and the rest of Daryl's staff, I think we'll get there. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Philip.
Next we have is Rhonda Veldors. And I failed to mention earlier, if you can just to, again, repeat who you're representing, if you're representing anyone. Thank you.
So my name is Rhonda Veldors. I'm an LPCS. I own my own practice in 3 different locations and in the Houston area. And I am actually representing not only me here, but the AMP program that also I'm a part of. So it's Illuminated Pathways Family Therapy, LLC. We have a location in Conroe, Missouri City, and in Houston. So this past year has been very good for us, and we've been growing greatly. So we're thankful for that. But let me start with saying hello to all the LPC board members and to our council and executive director, Daryl Spinks. Thank you for hearing from me today. My name is Rhonda K. Veldors, and I own and operate Illuminated Pathways Family Therapy in Houston, Conroe, and Missouri City. I am super grateful for all the positive changes that have been made through BHEC. I would like to share my thoughts about the CE broker platform. While I feel this is a great way to keep our CEs organized and current for our renewal process, that platform is not user-friendly. For example, when attending a conference, let me just kind of talk about a certificate. When attending a conference and then they list out all the different breakouts that you do and the hours that are there, there is no actual speaker name that goes with it. So when we go into the CE broker, it's asking who was the speaker, and without having to go back to all of our details, and maybe I didn't keep that, I just kept my notes. So then I'm just using the actual person for the actual program that held all those, right? So it makes it a little bit difficult to kind of know, well, will that be received by and recognized as I actually attended and did those CEs? And so it kind of gives me a little weariness as to understanding what I'm supposed to be putting in that blank. And then all conferences list the various categories with hours received, but no mention of presenter. This is across the board from TCA, AACC, and AMPHP, and et cetera. And with this being new, personally, I have used the organization's name or the founder of the organization as a presenter. If we are needing to have specifics and the struggle to go back and find out what is needed in the CE broker, I think it should allow for alternative options, especially if the organization is part of the 50% rule, approved or not approved. I do not want to be considered not getting credit for all the things that I have tried to do to renew my license for. And then as a supervisor, I want to be able to teach my associates to also learn it, but it's not user-friendly, and there's no tutorial to help you really understand where you go to enter this. And it took me about an hour and a half just to sit in with Kathleen, who has actually done this. And so for me as a supervisor, I think that's great, but it's really difficult to do. After entering all my information and uploading the certificates, it does not provide me with an exact number of approved credits either. A tutorial would be helpful, which I mentioned, so that we could help our associates navigate the platform. I am also thankful for the opportunity to keep track of my own items without having to pay for another thing to renew my license, while still giving others the option to pay for a platform and to keep them on target should they need it. Perhaps the free option doesn't allow for that record keeping of like actual numbers that are happening, and we count those on our own. But if it's somewhere, if we're entering everything and uploading everything, there's no actual number that says. I would like to know whether or not the entries are successful for an audit process, should that ever happen. And so since this is new, is there grace? Is there grace for this?
Hey, Rhonda, hang on just a second. Who deals with our account rep at CE Broker? Okay. Can you email your comments to Mr. Robert Romig?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And Robert, can we take a look at those? And if you need to work with me for what we can kind of package as some feedback to CE Broker, please.
I will do that.
To his attention. And
yes,
if it's something that you can reach out to CE Broker about, please do. Otherwise, check with me, and we will figure out where can we advocate for maybe some user-friendly improvements. Okay.
So with that being said, my renewal is up for the 28th of this next month, right? So I have to have everything in. And I just want to make sure, I have all of my credits, right? But it's not telling me anything. So is there grace? Will I be given grace if I've done all the things and you're able to go in and see that? Or am I, how does that look? And so, everything happens this next month for me, and I have so many people that I'm taking care of at the same time. So I want to make sure there's no delay in my renewal. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us this morning.
The next person we have is Kathleen Mills.
Forgive me, my eyeballs are still frozen from this week. My name is Kathleen Mills. I'm a licensed professional counselor supervisor and co-creator of AMP. First, Happy New Year. Ken Paxton's office still has not handed down an opinion yet per BHEC's request as to whether or not BHEC licensees are to be considered healthcare providers. What I wanted to say today, had that opinion been delivered in the manner in which we would have expected it to be, we'll have to wait. So I'd like to put something on the table for you to think about in advance of that decision. If the AG rules that we are not healthcare providers, that will have many unanticipated ramifications, not the least of which is how it conflicts with the current phrasing of the current state law. But more importantly, it will allow BHEC licensees to continue their writing of gender-affirming care for minors and not feel compelled to abide by state statute. I'm sure that's a liability exposure BHEC or the state of Texas doesn't really want to have, so we will wait. Here's my point, and please consider this. I think the board will then have to have an obligation to strongly consider adding appropriate line items to the penalty matrix for those licensees who fail to comply post-opinion. Something to think about. Also, as you already know, many of us are being canceled, threatened by both counselors, referral sources, and EAP companies. Why? Because of faith being faith-based and the idiotic perception that clinicians who have spiritual component will, at some point in the future, might cause harm to the client. Even ACA recognizes religion in their current code. ACA stated in their Liberty and Justice position paper, quote, ACA stand in solidarity with all religious faiths. So why are we getting discriminated against? I believe it's people's personal biases overlaid on the code that make them believe it does not apply to all people. Please be aware of the various legal decisions that have been rendered in Alabama, Michigan, Virginia, and other decisions that have won key victories that protects conscious protection rights for all counselors. We await for the Child Salazar decision. 2026 will be quite interesting. Your task ahead of you awaits as well. AMP will continue to defend our therapists who live by their faith principles, utilizing the Do No Harm model, offering free CEs to its membership, and offer a one-of-a-kind annual conference which focuses on mind, body, spirit, healing, and recovery. Thank you for listening, and welcome to 2026.
Thanks, Kathleen.
Okay, and the last one we have in person is Carrie Proctor.
Hello and good morning.
Good morning.
Greetings, esteemed board members and staff. My name is Carrie Proctor. I serve as the LPC Board Liaison for the Texas Association of Counselor Education and Supervision. We are the division of the Texas Counseling Association that represents counselor educators and supervisors, and I am an LPC supervisor. The TASIS board looks forward to the participation of designated LPC board members and staff at our 2026 TASIS Midwinter Conference in Georgetown on March 5th and 6th. The LPC board update is our featured keynote presentation on Thursday, March 5th from 10:30 to 11:45 a.m. We hope that our professional board members serving on the panel will take advantage of the opportunity to attend conference sessions for CE credit. We also appreciate Christina DeLuna for her willingness to answer member questions at the LPC board booth. Thank you for the opportunity to provide public comments and for your time and dedication to serving on this board. I'd also like to thank the BHEC staff for providing the BHEC listening hour. I really feel that that is beneficial for professional members to be able to ask questions and get clarification. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, all those online, if you are interested in providing public comment, please raise your hand. And the first person we have is Dr. Kate Walker.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Dr. Kate Walker. I'm a licensed LPC and LMFT supervisor and educator and the founder of Kate Walker Training. Our licensed LPCs, LMFTs, and social workers provide online supervisor training for LPC, LMFT, and social work supervisors in Texas and multiple other states. I'm offering a public comment today because I know how seriously this board takes the quality of supervision, and we take that responsibility just as seriously. In our most recent supervisor workshop, in fact, we addressed supervision and the responsible use of AI in clinical practice and documentation because these questions are already showing up in supervision settings. Our goal is to be part of the solution by preparing supervisors with content that's current, ethical, and grounded in board expectations. I want to thank the board for the amount of work you do and for maintaining a transparent public process. Unfortunately, we've become aware that some supervisor course providers in Texas are using older versions of our course materials that no longer are current or authorized, and there's not much we can do about that. What we can do is continue to attend these meetings, closely follow board discussions, and ensure that our training remains accurate and aligned. As our trainings are now used nationwide, the clarity and guidance coming out of Texas naturally influences how supervision is being taught more broadly. And finally, I want to thank Christina DeLuna. She's going to be our guest presenter February 11th at noon. And she's always, like Carrie said, she's just always been willing to interact with us, answer our questions. And as of today, we have over 150 people registered. So it's going to be a good presentation. But thank you guys again.
Thank you.
I forgot. No, I'm just kidding. It was on my calendar. All right, that is, oh, we had one more come up. Patty Drew.
Hi there, my name is Patty Drew. I'm a practicum counseling student at Texas State in San Marcos and Round Rock. And not only do I appreciate the board and all they do, but I also just wanted to say that I really appreciate all the fully licensed veteran counselors who keep abreast of issues and attend these meetings to share thoughts and concerns and feedback to improve upon policy and operations like the new CE broker interface. And I just look forward to continuing to learn and following in everyone's footsteps. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's it. No more public comment.
Thanks, everyone. Christina did mention that we did receive a written public comment at the beginning, and I'd like to just take a second to acknowledge that. First of all, thank you for submitting written comment. I promise we actually do read these. This one in particular was asking some questions regarding how the board is planning to respond to proposed changes at the Department of Education level, what we're going to do about it, do we have a position on it? And so I thought I would just take a second to kind of explain how we tackle things like that. Changes pending at the Department of Education are out of our scope of responsibility. That being said, staff, particular Daryl and Robert, do an excellent job of keeping us apprised. Usually it's at the BHEC level, but they do a fantastic job of keeping us apprised of trends, of pending cases, of basically of high-level stuff that is outside of our immediate responsibility, but is still something that we should be aware of. And so the board kind of strikes a balance in between kind of keeping informed on something that could potentially affect us, that we could potentially need to address, new rulemaking, perhaps. However, we don't spend a ton of time just preparing for something that hasn't happened yet. So we like to, long-winded way of saying we stay informed, but we don't give it more effort until we know specifically what we need to do. Like I said, the Department of Education, the written comment concerned, the pending Childs v. Salazar case, the AG opinion, these are all things that we're aware of. A lot of it gets discussed at the BHEC level. But for us, and my approach to it and my suggestion for the rest of the board is be as informed as you can. However, we don't get down into nuts and bolts on stuff until it's time and we know for sure that we actually have to do it. So again, staff, thanks for, Daryl will find some obscure case pending in the Northern District of Montana and he'll send it to us and like, hey, we need to keep an eye on this. And sometimes action comes out of it. A lot of times it doesn't, but for the public, for everybody listening, staff does a great job of keeping an eye on the high level while still making sure we're running the day-to-day operations here. And so, again, that's a long way of saying thank you for your written public comment. And also, if you're kind of interested in hearing about those high-level discussions, log into one of the BHEC meetings because we tackle all kinds of stuff there. Okay?
Robert, if we're not already, I think we already have AI on the agenda for rules and discussions. Is that right?
It is, yeah.
It's ongoing.
Generally, yes.
Yeah. It's ongoing.
Nothing specific,
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Board, any questions? Anything that you wanted to add to that? Okay. Thank you. Thanks for everyone's public comment. Let's go ahead and move forward. Agenda item 4 is general matters. And we're going to start off with the board chair report. Some significant changes to our committee structures. After discussion with Robert and Christina, we made the decision that the Professional Development Committee, as well as the Counseling Compact Committee, are going to be transitioned to an ad hoc basis. Both will be utilized in the event that they're necessary, but it was kind of a consensus opinion that those don't need to be as active right now. And so we transitioned those to ad hoc basis, which meant we had 3 of our traditional committees remaining. I made the decision that with 3 standing committees and with 9 board members, we were going to divide up to 3 board members on each of the committees. Okay. So the new committee assignments, some of them are repeats, some of them are new. But our Rules Committee is going to be Dr. Janie Stubblefield, Chair, Dr. Christopher Taylor, and myself. The Application and Supervision Committee is going to be chaired by Dr. Bradley to my right, Corey Rose, Public Member, and Ms. Chan, Public Member. Complaints Committee is going to be chaired by Dr. Leah Amuna. Congratulations on your first chair position. Brian and Nadia on the Complaints Committee. That leads into another big change. We've had kind of a gradual buildup on our complaint numbers. And in an effort to participate in addressing those complaint numbers and getting them under control, after discussion with Robert and Christina, we made the decision that we were going to open up review of complaints to all 9 board members. Okay? And by that, I mean participating in the informal settlement conferences. Traditionally, this has been just the purview of the Complaints Committee, and a lot of times it ended up just being Chris and Janie. But now we have opened that up to all 9 board members in an effort for addressing availability and also for having some just more numbers to address the issue because we have a buildup in our complaint numbers. Now, that being said, we want to address some of the details behind this. First of all, I want to be very clear. Public members will not review cases that are more appropriate for professional members. If an ISC is a question of did the LPC use correct or incorrect professional judgment, then that will be an ISC that's handled by a professional member. We're not putting public members on those types of cases. Okay, that's our first safeguard. Second safeguard, when appropriate and or necessary, staff will include multiple board members, both public and professional, for the ISC. Okay, so there are safeguards here. I know there's some concern about, first of all, the fact that staff is handling more ISCs on their own. And then I believe this one is also, this is a significant change. And so we wanted to address the concerns we've identified, how we're handling it, and also just be very clear with the reasoning behind this, okay? A lot of discussion really over the past couple of months, for sure since our last board meeting, about LPC complaint numbers gradually increasing, okay? We noticed the start of the trend about 2 years ago?
Second quarter of fiscal year 25.
Okay. And frankly, the implementation of BHEC, the leadership from the staff really got everything cleaned up. And now we have identified, well, something is starting to trend in the wrong direction. And so we wanted to acknowledge it. We wanted to explain what we're doing about it. And then the logical question for you members of the Complaints Committee is, okay, if our role is not just doing ISCs, what's our job? And so for the Complaints Committee, when we identify a trend and we want to get behind the reasons behind it, we want to figure out what's causing this and how we can address it, that's going to be the role of the Complaints Committee, okay? So when the Complaints Committee meets, it says, okay, we have seen, we've got a consistent 5% quarterly increase in the rate of complaints. We have to address this. What we're noticing is that the majority of those complaints are because of X. How can we address that? Complaints Committee, you come up with solutions, you come up with proposals, and then you bring them back to the greater board to address. Okay? Daryl and I have had a lot of discussions about the reasons behind this. And Daryl made a great point. He said, well, it's not a statistical improbability that the rate of your increase in complaints is correlated to the rate of your new licensees. But my concern was, well, all the boards are increasing in their licenses. Why are our LPC complaint numbers going up? And kind of the theory we have behind this is because LPCs are almost exclusively in a clinical practice, which leads to more complaint numbers. We have just over 41,000 licensees, the majority of which do direct counseling, and that naturally leads to more complaints. That being said, how do you address that? And we're being very transparent here, public. We're being very transparent here. This is something that we've identified, but instead of ignoring it and saying, I bet it goes away, we're addressing it. And I would like to have a discussion today, your theories behind it, what you think we can do, how you feel about these proposed changes to not only the committee structure, but how we're going to tackle ISCs, the safeguards that we have in place for ISCs. Do you think we need additional safeguards?
I have a couple of questions.
Please.
Are we tracking who is making the complaints? Is it just the customers or the patients or other people making the complaint, or are we tracking who are making the complaints in relation to the counselors themselves? Is it their supervisors? Is it some other third party? I think it's important to know that. I mean, I'm an attorney, and I know that it's very limited as to who can make complaints against us and how those complaints are addressed. And I think that it's important that we track who are making the complaints and how, just so we can see how that data flushes out. And then my other question would be, and this might be a bigger question for the committee itself, but what is the problem with the staff initially handling the ISC? I know that in other licensure boards, that's sort of how it happens. I used to handle license complaints for police officers and their board. That's how complaints are handled. The ISC is handled by the staff first, and the licensure board then approves or disapproves the ISC, because typically the staff members have a more intimate understanding of how things should be handled. So those are kind of my two questions.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of the who is filing complaints, we don't specifically track in terms of a numerical measure how many complaints are filed by clients versus fellow practitioners. I will say a couple of things. We, as the agency, can open complaints ourselves. We are not seeing a particular increase in that. So it is not, these numbers are not being driven internally. That has not grown in any particular way. The other thing I would say is you could wonder, well, is the growth in complaints particularly from disgruntled clients in a way that is more frivolous complaints that we wouldn't expect to go further? At least at the moment, our overall percentage that result in discipline is not changing. And so we have not seen a significant shift down where you would suggest, oh, we're getting more frivolous complaints. That may happen, but we haven't seen it yet.
I guess my concern is a non-client making a complaint. And that's where we get protections as attorneys, is non-clients who make complaints, their complaints are basically ignored by our licensing board 9 times out of 10. I mean, the state board doesn't accept complaints from non-clients. And so if we're getting a huge amount of complaints from non-clients, and I've had a personal experience with this with a client of mine. No, I haven't received any state bar complaints for the record, but a client of mine, a divorce client of mine, her husband made a complaint against her counselor during a divorce, and so her poor counselor had to go and hire an attorney, and her complaint was cleared by you guys, and there were no complaints there. But you know, that was awful for her, and it was not a pleasant experience for my client and the counselor. And so I just wonder if maybe that should be tracked to see if there's a problem there that maybe could be handled, and depreciate some of. Maybe a rule could be implemented to stop some of those complaints before they even start by third parties who don't really have an interest in making a complaint.
Yeah, we don't have a standing requirement to file a complaint, so we don't look at it and say you have to have firsthand knowledge or be a client. I will say anecdotally, I know we've had the client, we've had people related to the client file complaints, we've had people, third parties that are not involved at all, file complaints. We've had anonymous complaints, we've had supervisors and supervisees file complaints against each other. Like anybody and everybody is essentially potentially a complainant in a lot of these complaints. There's not, as Robert was saying, there's not. We know that that's happening. We don't have a way to track that necessarily. Like we don't classify a complainant as client, non-client, or anything like that. So there wouldn't be a way for us to know how to do that. I don't know if there is a way for us to do that in the database. So that'd be something we'd have to look at to see if that's even something possible. But I don't know that we could, by rule, limit who has an ability to file a complaint. I will say, obviously, the person with firsthand knowledge is usually the better complainant. But I will say we have had complaints come in where there are people that don't have firsthand knowledge, and they've resulted in revocation of a license because it was serious allegations. So I completely understand what you're saying, and I just don't know that we could enact a rule that would allow us to do that. I'd have to look further at the statutes.
And one particular difference in this field that may make a real substantive difference is that many of the complaints that are occurring from a third party are going to be ones that the client themselves don't have the information to make. So if the client is receiving substandard services, they may not know that they're receiving it, but a fellow colleague would. Or similarly, if the therapist has entered in a dual relationship with a client, often the client is not interested in that. They are happy with the dual relationship, and yet it is something that a third party really does need to bring forward. So in that regard, I don't think we can universally ban, but we do absolutely look at who is making the complaint and what information they're providing. And so if someone comes forward and files a complaint as a third party and they don't really provide any substantive information, we'll dismiss that. We don't spend our time on things that don't have any hope of finding a violation. So we are very mindful of that.
Go ahead, Dr. Bradley.
I have a question along Ms. Stewart's line of questioning. Okay, so let's envision that, and we've heard that we have an increased number of complaints. Do we keep a record? Okay, so the number's going up, but are they legitimate complaints? That's something I would like to know, because you can increase the number of complaints and they may be accurate and they may be frivolous. Do we know what's the outcome?
Yes, and that we are tracking. We track the number of complaints that come in, how long they're with us, what their resolution is, whether there's discipline. And that's what I was suggesting earlier. At this time, we have not seen an increase in frivolous complaints. The disciplinary outcome is still about the same percentage, but we're watching because one would expect it takes about a year to resolve average. Our average is a little less than that, but so we could around now start to see a decrease in the percentage of resolutions or discipline, and that would tell us we are getting more frivolous complaints. We have not seen that yet.
Go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say one thing along the lines of what Ms. Stewart was asking about. I'm not sure if we would have the authority. I'm a little iffy on whether we would have authority to limit, who could file a complaint. However, that might be an issue that's ripe for an AG opinion. You might be able to request an AG opinion on that. BHEC could, and say what the AG is not going to lay out. Well, you could do this or you could do that. They're not going to do that. But if we could figure out kind of what we wanted to do, we could then maybe ask the Attorney General, does our existing statutory authority, would it allow us to do this? That might be something we could do. I'd have to think a little bit on that one, Nadia, but that might be let us kick that around a little bit.
Right. Go ahead.
Being very careful on how to parse this, I have seen an increase in victimology, victim status, that there are more victims identified and therefore more complaints. Culturally, there's been a shift towards that, in my opinion. It reminds me of the flagship hotel that used to extend out over Galveston Bay. They had a broken window because somebody was fishing from the room. Well, they put a sign up and said, no fishing from room. Well, guess how many more windows got broken? Because, we can fish from the room, and they broke more windows because they put a sign up that said, don't do that. And I'm all for the signs, and I have them in my office that where to file a complaint and all that stuff. But and we do see a whole lot more people than the other practices just face to face. But there's been a real cultural shift in who's a victim and who's not. And if I can complain, it's frivolous lawsuits. How do you dismiss a frivolous lawsuit? Well, it's up to the judge, I think. And it's up to our board to dismiss those frivolous suits. But if you're having less offenses from the professional side and more complaints, then I'm like, well, okay, more people are complaining. I guess we need to deal with that. I don't know how to decrease that, but people are going to complain because we're counselors. Yeah. And,
go ahead, Jane.
Yeah. Thank you.
Daryl, I know we're having a big research study done. Are we looking at some of the roots of is it from one, educational system, or are they individuals who were educated outside Texas? Or you see what I'm saying? Are we asking those questions?
Robert, you talked with UT the other day on this. I don't know, but I think probably Robert might have you.
So yeah, there are limitations. Unfortunately, our database is only set up for so many fields of information. And while we do, there's one area we've long been frustrated by. We do collect people's university, but not in a way that can be aggregated in any sort of data. But so they are looking for trends. The direction we've given the researchers is essentially an open-ended, can you please look at all of our disciplinary data and tell us what you find? Because we didn't want to direct them. And so we don't have any results back yet.
I hate to keep harping on this topic, and you guys are, I've only been here for a short amount of time, and you guys are phenomenal. I can see it with my own eyes. These guys are saying it. Everybody up here who has given me any indication, I think, can see it as well. But a year to get complaints resolved is too long. It is. And you guys have shortened that time frame. I can see from the data that you have, and that is your goal to continue shortening the time frame. I know that. But it's too long. And so, and I know I asked 2 questions, and so I'm going to ask my question again. What is the problem with you guys, your staff, doing the ISCs and then just bringing them to the board to approve? I think that makes the most sense. I think that that's going to be the most efficient way of handling the majority of the complaints.
And
so, I see what you're saying, but as a fellow attorney, I think the concern is, would you want a disciplinary matter against you decided by a non-attorney, or do you want it decided by an attorney? Because they're not professional counselors, but they would have the authority to make the determination on the matter. That's my read on it.
I totally agree, but I trust them more than I trust whatever else Nadia was talking about. Because
More
I
than an
trust them
attorney?
to.
We trust them more than
Your solution
attorneys.
is very helpful, but I trust them because they are lawyers, and they do know the law, and they can weed them out and then give us what we need.
And that's a big part of the what I'm calling the safeguards on the changes to the ISCs. If it involves a matter of did you exercise correct or incorrect professional judgment, that's when we bring in the professional members on that. It's kind of
Robert,
like,
I just want to clarify real quick for everybody that is not directly involved in the complaints process, because a lot of the complaints are resolved before they ever come to an ISC by staff within 90 days.
Yes, less.
Yeah, less. Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a ton of the non-frivolous. So anything that's frivolous is not making it up to an ISC. It's not getting. So there's a lot that's already getting taken out. Anything that Janie and I are really seeing, and I noticed this really over the last 2 years, has been a lot more of a serious nature. It's no longer, oh, I requested my records and they said sure, and then I never heard back from them again. Those seem to be, I don't see those anymore. I used to see a lot of like really low end stuff that was just more administrative by nature or more just frivolous, right? Just non-jurisdictional. And we've seen I have, Janie has a massive reduction in that. So I think when we're talking about the time to resolve a complaint for a year, I think what we're talking about are more egregious matters that require an ISC that's usually appealed, I believe. Because if they accept the decision of the ISC, that's within 3 to 6 months usually. Then they appeal, then that goes to SOA, then SOA comes back to us. And so that is where we get the year average from, I believe, right?
Right. If I could give a little more detail, thank you for bringing that up. The process we use, so when complaints come in, and this is good for everybody to understand, the first level is the least amount of staff time and effort, is the line staff investigators look at the complaints, and if on their face there is no violation asserted, somebody files a complaint that, and we've literally gotten this, my neighbor who is a licensee blew their leaves into my pool, and I'm really upset, you need to do something about it. That is not a violation of the Counseling Act. That has nothing to do with us. We dismiss that complaint. The licensee never knows about it. It's just gone. The investigative staff, if there is a colorable claim, if they say, I got substandard care, or I think there's a dual relationship, or something that could be a violation if true, then we give the complainant the opportunity to give us more information, and we take that to the licensee and say, this is what we've been told. Please tell us your side of the story. For licensees, please know we do that not as though we think you're guilty, but because we want to give you the opportunity to respond. At that point, if the investigator says, you know what, I've read both sides and I just don't think there's anything to this, they can recommend it be dismissed. An attorney will review it, and if they agree, it's dismissed. It doesn't go any farther. All of that is the vast majority of our complaints. That's where they get stopped, and it is within 2 months. Only the ones that have some sort of meat on them continue on and get an ISC. Even before it comes to an ISC with the board, that's when Patrick and I will get involved. That's when our attorneys will be looking at it. And if our attorneys say, look, we think there's something here, we think there might have been a dual relationship, but there is no way for us to prove it. The client's not cooperating, the licensee, there is no record, there's nothing we can point to, well, then we won't move forward. We're not going to waste your time with things that cannot be proven. If, on the other hand, it's something that the licensee has admitted to and says, yep, you know what, you're right, I violated that, we're going to resolve it with them. We're not going to waste your time in bringing that forward to say, hey, look, everybody's on the same page. Can we borrow some of your time just to agree with everybody who's on the same page? That's why we have the penalty matrix. And that guides staff to say, look, you've admitted to this violation. Here's what the board has said the penalty should be. Let's all agree and move forward. So it really is only the ones where we feel we have solid evidence of a violation, but the licensee denies that a violation happened, that's when, if it involves a standard of practice, we get the board involved for an ISC. There again, some of those complaints don't involve a standard of practice. If somebody failed to provide their records within the 15 days and they're just digging in their heels, again, we don't require you as the board to come in to verify what we already know, that you violated the rule and we're going to pursue that. So, but as the chair said, we would like all of you to be available as tools in our toolbox to come to when we have these kinds of complaints to be more effective and efficient.
Robert, can you give an example of what would be an appropriate case for a public member to be in the ISC?
So it could range, and we'll have to test this out. Most of it's going to be more of the bureaucratic. You failed to provide records. The more egregious, you didn't keep any records. No one. It doesn't take it. That would be a standard of practice, but still, everyone understands the violation there. Sexual misconduct would be one where, if it is clear, if the claim is about someone sleeping with their active client, that is just a blatant violation. There's no nuance. There's no questions about, well, were you doing a particular therapy that allowed you to sleep with your client? No. The answer is no.
So Nadia, Elisa, are you comfortable participating in those types of cases? Because those are what us as public members, those are the kinds of things that we'll get. Are you comfortable with it?
I'm comfortable participating in almost any kind of disciplinary case. I just want it to be efficient. I am comfortable participating in any kind of disciplinary case, frankly. As long as I'm giving the background information to understand the rules, I just want it to be as efficient as possible. That's all
I'm comfortable as well. I think the staff would provide enough based on the discussion I've heard so far. I think the staff is having a very good idea about the categories that are administrative or compliance. I think that what you're looking for, essentially something that is more nuanced, that you would like to have the full board participation. And I feel comfortable, and I think I can do a good job being a very logical-minded person.
Okay. And also, a big concern is, can we have consistency in rulings? Because if we have 9 members participating in these ISCs, how can we be consistent in what we decide? And that is one of the first responses that we had with staff is, can you work with us so that we can be consistent in our determinations? And really, it starts with the penalty matrix. The penalty matrix was put in place for consistency. And so that's what we operate from. It's kind of like, here's the violation, here is where it slots in the penalty matrix, and at that point, are there ancillary considerations? But public, the consistency is a big issue for us. We don't want this to be a thing like, if you're in trouble, you definitely want to get Hallbauer. He's easy. And you don't want to get Dr. Stubblefield because she will throw the book at you. We do need to make consistent determinations on this. And staff, we're going to be working on that to kind of iron out the details behind this. Okay. Go ahead, Lisa.
I have a question. So I do understand there's a complaints committee. So would the complaints committee make a recommendation, then bring up to the full board, or how would that work? Okay.
The role of the complaints committee has shifted. It originally was the complaints committee are the only people that hear the ISCs. Now we all hear ISCs. Complaints committee has a different role. It's kind of, staff says, we've noticed a pattern here. Perhaps it was from additional data that we received from the UT report. So complaints committee then comes to the board and says, this was brought to our attention. This was our discussion behind it. We've identified a couple of questions that we're kind of split on, and we want a full board discussion on it. Or they can say, look, the data consistently shows that when we made this rule change in our summer meeting of 2025, ever since we made that rule change, we've seen an increase in violations related to that rule. So should we change that rule? Or do we just need to publicize it more? That's what the complaints committee is more providing investigation and recommendation.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And the complaints committee will be accountable to the three blind mice over there, the attorneys. That
we're all accountable to them.
I mean, but yeah, I don't want to be hung out there without their support and their help and legal
have your back.
direction.
Yeah,
they meet with Christina, and then Christina brings it to the committee.
I just want it on the record.
Okay.
On that matter, with regard to the data, will we, the complaints committee, have access to data, just kind of glean ourselves to see if we can find trends that may not have already been presented to us?
Yes. Yeah, we'll present data and be hoping that y'all help in the identification of trends.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
One thing I would add, Mr. Chair, Ms. Stewart, we've got a rule pending at BHEC that addresses a lot of what you were talking about, kind of staff-driven ISCs or staff-focused ISCs. That's something that BHEC is going to be taking up on February 17th. A lot of the same type of discussion will be had at the BHEC level up there, because the ISC process is a BHEC process. It is not, each board doesn't develop their own ISC process. We have to have a standardized. And I will say one other thing, like when we are developing ISCs, anytime we're developing a process, I want the public to understand as much as the board. When we build these things, we can't build them around any one person, because if I get hit by a bus or Robert gets hit by a bus, I'll keep him on life support to the best I can so that he can keep functioning from the hospital room. But we have to build it so that the machine itself can run without one of us in it at any time. So that we are conscious of that, and the legislature doesn't wanting us building a machine around one man or one woman. So we're very aware of that when we're doing these processes.
So it'll be a BHEC thing. That'll govern all of us.
Yeah, the enforcement process is actually a BHEC process. It has to be developed.
Yeah.
Because it would be terribly inefficient. It would violate all kinds of good governance standards to have one for the LPC board, one for the MFT board. We'd be a train wreck in a quick, fast, and a hurry.
Good.
So
that helps us.
Yeah. The difficulty here is y'all are just the largest licensee population.
I think a big issue here is you have 9 people, and it's not a matter of saying they need to be consistent. It's a matter of how are you going to train them so that they have the likelihood of being more consistent. I mean, you can go down this group and you can tell there are differences, and those differences are likely to show up in decisions time after time. So how do we become consistent? Because we don't want someone out there saying, well, I want Bradley to hear this case because she may be more lenient, as opposed to someone else. Or maybe the opposite is true. I don't want to be involved with Bradley hearing a case because she'll throw the book at you. So I don't think consistency just occurs. I think it involves planning and training to be sure. And the second, and I'll ask this quickly, I don't know how many cases we're likely talking about, and I know it will vary by the month, but what are we talking about? How many cases would we likely hear in a month?
Well, I think the point of the chair's plan is that anybody would be on call. So if you're not available, we would then just look for the next available board member that we need. So it's not you have to do 20 cases every single month. It's really more of an ad hoc basis, and I don't even think we have that many every month. I don't know, maybe a dozen a month, maybe. We are not looking to just keep going to the same well, you know. And one of the things, to your question about training, some of the things we've done, like with psychology, so each of the boards likes to do their ICs a little bit differently. Psychology tends to want to have more board members, and so we've had extra ones sit in as long as we don't have a quorum, so that they could see sort of how it goes. The other part of it too is staff could be there and also sort of guide you through it. But it is really, it's exactly what it is. It's an informal process, as it says in the name, informal settlement conference. So your guideposts are, you can look at the penalty matrix, but a big part of it is you'll hear from both parties and you'll make a determination of, a recommendation on, do we think this did occur or didn't occur? Is it likely that who's more believable? What is the evidence show that this actually did occur? Is there, and then you can look at mitigating circumstances. Have they taken steps to correct the misconduct? Are they likely to reoffend? So there's a lot of different factors, but I mean, staff can definitely guide any board members in there. And some of the things we can also look at is training, where having a board member who's done it several times with a board member who's not done it before as well. But again, it's not, if you're not available, I think the chair's point of his plan is, then we can then look for another board member.
And Dr. Bradley, you spoke about consistency, and that is a big concern with me. And for me, it does kind of fall back on the fact that we have this well-developed, well-thought-out penalty matrix. Without the penalty matrix, consistency would be impossible.
That's right.
But we do have that. It's been in place for 8 years now. I know it was being worked on when I joined the board, and I'm a believer in the penalty matrix. I think it's been a great thing that we added, and I think if we're looking to balance additional participation from our board members for these, it had to be with the understanding that the penalty matrix, that's the rule book. It's in place, and any board member that participates in the ISC has to make their determination based on what is the infraction, where does it slot into that penalty matrix. And I think that's the best way that we can achieve consistency. But as far as just maybe some training, some some practice for the board members before they do this, that would help as well. Okay.
Yeah, I totally vote for that. Either those that have done it before us or anybody, but training would be so helpful to be consistent.
Yeah.
Because without consistency, we're in trouble.
I would add on the consistency. When you go to an ISC, you're actually answering two questions. Did they do that bad thing? And then what should the punishment be? The punishment part, there should be consistency because of the penalty matrix. Did they do that bad thing? I'm not sure. I don't know if it would be right to say, well, we always want a consistent answer there. Guilty. The whole point is we're there. You're there using your professional judgment, your common sense to decide, did they actually commit an infraction? And then if they did, what is the appropriate punishment? So I'm not sure striving for consistency in the guilt innocence question, forgive the criminal analogy there, but it's the best analogy I got. That's you're just going to have to go in there just like a pettit juror. If you get called for jury duty, you're just answering that question, and then the judge tells you, well, here's the law, here's what the punishment is. It's the same concept here. We want consistency in that punishment, but I need you to look. It's a case by case. That's a individual person sitting out there with a specific set of facts. You're going to have to make that call individually each time in an ISC.
That's well said. I think we already have the guideline in terms of the penalty matrix we talk about. But the reason why we would like to involve more board members, because all of us have different experience, and I think diversity will come up the best decision. Yeah. And I applaud for the chair to make that, and hopefully we will see some decrease. And the research part will be very interesting, because I also would like to see what type of complaints are increasing, because you may be able to categorize different type of complaints. And I'll be curious to know which area are those complaints. Thank you.
Just to tie a bow on this, increase in complaints, steps are being taken to effectively, again, consistently address those complaints. Public, that's that's how we're tackling this. Public know that it's on our radar and it's being worked on. So, Dr. Bradley, anything else to add?
I have one quick statement. I'm sitting here hearing about this, and I'm trying to visualize how it's going to work. So, say there are 10 complaints. Are you all going to say then February the 10th, you need to be available? I mean, because you need for the client to be able, if it is a client issue or if it's a supervisor, to have this resolved. I mean, or are you just going to pick up the phone and hope someone's available at that time? I mean, how structured is this going to be?
So we need to meet. We're going to sit down and meet with our attorneys and work through that. It is not. I think one of the benefits of expanding the number of available board members. Up till now, the attorneys have tried to hold ISEs and have several in one day to get them all done. Having more of you will mean we don't have to do that, and instead it can be asking only for 1 hour of your time on one day for one ISE, and they can be more rapid fire throughout the month rather than built up, which would actually be easier to schedule with individuals. Now, whether we have the attorneys call you individually on a rotating basis and find out what day you're available, or do we instead say at every board meeting ask you to give us a few days, each of you over the next 3 months that you're available to lock in on your calendar? We haven't decided exactly what the best way to do that is yet.
Okay.
We will not be calling you Dr. Bradley the day before going, help, can you do an IC tomorrow? If that's what you're worried about, don't worry about that. There will be plenty of runway for you, because we've got to schedule it with defense counsel, all the parties. I mean, there's 4 or 5 parties we got to make sure are all available on that same day. So it's not something we can just do on the spot.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Public, if you have questions about that, please submit your comments to us. Moving on, just quick couple of notes from the BHEC meeting on October 14th. We withdrew consideration on a couple of our proposed rule changes. That's 68191, the LPC associate license, and 68193, supervisor requirements. Those are pending additional discussion. We did review and we did approve the changes in 68153 on custody evaluations and 681-114 on licensing of military members and spouses. Both of those changes are up for possible adoption today. And like has been mentioned a couple times, our next BHEC meeting is on Tuesday, February 17th. That wraps up my board chair report and the BHEC update, and I will hand it over to Christina for the administrator's report.
All right, I have a couple things. Reminder-wise, the new BHEC Rule 882.1 related to applications being open for only 180 days is in effect, and that's for initial applications, upgrades, and reinstatements. So those of you who are have submitted those, please keep that in mind. You only have 180 days now. If that application expires, you will have to reapply. That includes a new fee. Related to upgrades, we're still seeing a lot of the supervised experience documentation forms being emailed to staff. We need to remember that the associate must go online to initiate that online upgrade application process. There's no fee, but to initiate that process, you have to go online and complete the application. We really want to recommend to associates and supervisors to if you can, go ahead and try and sign hours more frequently. We're starting to see a little bit of issues with the supervisors and associates not quite agreeing on hours. So associates, you can keep your hours as well. You can ask your supervisor to sign your records as well as, their records. So just keep in mind this license is for the associates, but working together on this really helps in the long run for both parties. Related to the application for supervisor status, those of you who are applying for supervisor status, please make sure that you click the attach button when you are uploading the supervisor course certificate. We're seeing a lot of the applications have deficiencies because the course certificate's not attached, just delays the process on it. Staff are working on applications that were received on January 8th. So if you applied prior to January 8th, you probably have a deficiency and have received an email. Please go and double check your email, including your spam. Big reminder about the customer service survey. We really hope to get your feedback. That does close tomorrow at 5 p.m. The emails for that customer service survey went out December 3rd. And January 2nd. So if you want to go back to your emails, again, December 3rd and January 2nd, please, that information is really helpful for internal processes and all that. So we'd love to hear back from you. Again, it closes tomorrow at 5 o'clock. The other survey that we currently have right now is the BHEC Workforce Survey. You do have a little bit of time on that. That email was sent out January 1st. So again, that's the BHEC Workforce Study Survey. Couple more updates. So the NCE exam, the Spanish exam is going to be available. They are, with fingers crossed, next month going to have that available for Texas applicants. They are still in the process of working on getting the NCMHCE to also be in a Spanish format as well, but that is going to take a little more time. And so there's no time expectation at this point. Related to the LPC Associate Survey, we had more than 600 responses for that. The Rules Committee, which you'll hear in a little bit, will be working on those results. We're looking that over, determining if there's any rules or guidelines that might need to come from that. So just keep an eye out on that, and maybe at our next meeting we'll be able to have an update for you all. Related to the Counseling Compact update, as hopefully everyone understands that Texas can't just join on their own. It does require legislation. Next session begins January of 27. The board cannot lobby, so we rely on licensees or the public or the associations to go and share your position on the Counseling Compact for Texas. There's currently 39 states that have enacted the compact legislation. Arizona and Minnesota were the first two to complete the technical and regulatory steps that went live on September 30th. And then Ohio just became a part of that as well on January 5th. So those three states, Arizona, Minnesota, and Ohio, are all already working on, issuing the privileges to practice. And then lastly, the board's BHEC performance measure reports were in your board packets. If you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer.
One thing I would add on Christina's report on the workforce survey, folks, that is incredibly handy for us to use. So I'm kind of begging you, please take that. I actually used it the other day. I had a senator reach out to me about a question, and I was able to search through my 23 results and answer a question that she had. So we use that thing more than you think. So if y'all would, I know it's long, but you have to ask all those questions to get a good snapshot of the profession. So please take that if you will be so kind as to do so.
Daryl, can I echo that it's been used by other committees like the Children's Mental Health Subcommittee as well, to look at what our workforce looks like in terms of what our needs are. So very, very important information.
And
any questions? Oh, sorry, Robert, go ahead.
If I could, just because it was brought up at the public comment, I could give a bit of a CE broker update. Because we are now in the period where you do have to have your CE broker account active, and you need to have completed all of your CE and reported that to renew your license. Wanted to let folks know all the steps that we are taking, and there was a question about grace and sort of how to use the system. We are going to notify you by email and postcard when it's time for you to renew. We are also going to get an email list from CE Broker for each month where for anybody who does not have their account set up yet. So we will warn you again. Your renewal is about to happen and you don't have your account set up. You need to do this. CE Broker will be sending email after email after email to try to remind you to do this. So we are trying our best to let people know you need to do this. Now, in terms of actually doing the reporting, we have certainly heard frustrations like the ones this morning about how to submit your documentation and what information to provide online. The thing that I will say about that is that we are not grading your work right then. And in fact, generally speaking, we are not getting nitpicky about your work. The fields that are in CE Broker are the ones CE Broker has already customized and set up. We don't care who the speaker was. Put the name of the organization. That is fine. We need to know who it is presented for, who is putting it on. And really what I mean to be communicating is just do your best. That's all we're asking. Do your best to put the information in. There's another field about whether it's an online or in-person or webinar or, again, we don't care. Pick whatever selection makes the most sense to you. That's fine. That is absolutely fine. Just be putting in all your hours. For things like conferences, CE Broker has the capacity where you can put one conference in and list how many ethics hours and how many supervision hours and how you can put it all in one entry. Or you can split it up and put in one entry for supervision and one entry for ethics and one entry for general. That's fine. Again, we don't care. We leave it up to y'all. We're okay with you putting it in how it makes sense for you. If you need to attach the same certificate multiple times, again, that's fine. We are not trying to be nitpicky. We're not trying to trip anybody up. Now, the one thing we do care about is that it does need to be all submitted and verified before you renew your license. We can give lots of assistance and grace for what the entries say. There can be no grace because of the database for getting it done. If you don't have your little green check mark in CE Broker before you try to renew and your renewal date comes and goes, your license will be delinquent and you will have to pay a late fee, and we cannot do anything about that. We cannot waive that. So I do want to make sure that's clear. But CE Broker's helpline is there. Their customer service is there. We are here. We can look in the back end and see what you've reported. So we are here every step of the way and are not trying to trip anybody up.
Thank you, Robert. Any questions? Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. Rules Committee, Dr. Stubblefield.
I want to say thank you to my colleague, Dr. Taylor, for sharing his computer. Mine has decided not to work today. So it is having a mental health day for sure. The Rules Committee met in December, and we discussed the clarification of the supervision calculation requirements. That is at 4 hours per month. And then we also discussed potential rule changes to better outline the board expectations. No rules are being presented at this time. We do have 2 additional meetings scheduled in March and April to continue those discussions and then to review the LPC Associate Survey results to determine what might need to be done for that.
Yeah, and Dr. Stubblefield, regarding what we're going to go over in the LPC Associate or the LPC Associate Survey results, that's kind of part of, the petition for rulemaking that we've had. I believe Lenika Graham, who had brought that to us. And so if she's listening, your suggestions as part of the petition for rulemaking is still being considered, but we're going to bring in the data that we obtained from that survey.
Correct. And Christina, has that survey closed? Is it still open?
No, it's closed.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for the Rules Committee? Okay. Hearing none. And any other committee reports or updates at this time?
That was all.
Okay. I do have a note here. Robert, you were going to speak on proposed Rule 884.11 at the BHEC level. You want to do that now?
That was the complaints ISE rule, so we've done it.
He was testing you.
All good.
follow the agenda. No. My apologies. Item number 5, the mandatory reporting requirements clarification. That's going to be Patrick.
Yes, if you look in the board materials, I think the best source for when discussing this subject is looking directly at the statute. And so in the board's materials, I think it's labeled number 5. It's a copy of section 261.101 of the Family Code. And so I think some of the questions that people have brought up or had, and Robert can correct me on this as well, because he and I actually gave a talk on this recently, is the important thing to remember is this statute applies to every Texan. It's not necessary. There is a section specifically about, so subsection A talks about every Texan has the duty to report. And then subsection B of this statute talks about professionals, such as licensees of this board, have a specific duty to report. And so the difference is that in subsection A it says, shall immediately make a report when you have reasonable cause to believe. And in subsection B, a professional shall make a report, and it was changed from 48 hours to 24 hours, shall make a report no later than 24 hours after the professional has first reasonable cause to believe a child has been abused or neglected. So it's a more stringent standard, and the statute later goes on to talk about that duty for a professional cannot be delegated or an individual. Now you can ask, hey, will you make this report for me? And if it gets made, great. But if a defense to not making a report can't be, well, I told my secretary to make the report and they didn't make it, so don't blame me, blame my secretary. Nope, you had the duty. You needed to report it. That's not a defense. So, well, one of the other things I think Christina wanted me to talk about is I mentioned to bring up is also specifically in the statute is you could tell the legislature shoehorned in because they made it subsection B-1 is an additional requirement. So there used to be actually an old AG opinion that this statute superseded, and it used but this statute now specifically says that there is a duty for a professional or an individual when there's reasonable cause to believe that an adult was a victim of abuse or neglect, and the person or professional determines in good faith that disclosure of the information is necessary to protect the health and safety of another child or a disabled or elderly person. So this legislative change does create a duty for there to be a mandatory reporting, even if the abuse. So the example would be, client comes into the LPC's office and says, back when I was a child, I was abused, but I'm now an adult. And you would think, well, do I need to report that? And the question they would have to ask or to make that determination if there is a required reporting is, okay, if let's say the abuse was in their home when they were growing up, and there's now still children in that home, and there's a reasonable cause to believe that they were abused, those children would also be similarly abused, then this could potentially cause a required mandatory reporting. So, but just because it happened when they were a child and they're now an adult, but there's no cause to believe that the safety of another child or elderly or disabled person is implicated, then there's not necessarily that duty under this B.
Patrick, I just want to clarify for all of the therapists out there that, licensed professionals are not investigators.
Right.
So it's not our job to go
yes.
and track down to see if there's a kid in the home or something. It's just only if this information comes to us and we suspect it to be true.
Right. And you don't have to verify the truth or veracity of it. So if you look further in chapter 261 it specifically says there is actually a criminal penalty for failure to report, but there's also immunities in 261 that basically talk about that unless they made a false report and they knowingly are basically making false reports, then that's obviously not allowed. But I think sort of the general guiding principle is that I've looked at for this sort of statute is when in doubt, when it seems like there's reasonable cause, it's better to report.
I just know we
than-
got a lot of trauma therapists
But-
out there right now that are just counting their caseload.
Yeah.
How many of reports they're going to have to make now.
You're right.
That's
It's
very
not,
helpful.
There's not. They don't have to become, Sherlock Holmes. And,
Yeah.
And okay, well now I've got to call 12 people and verify that everything that they said was true and that this report is required.
And then another point of clarification I wanted to make, because it's not specifically stated in here, but my interpretation and what we've always done as a board is to understand that you cannot make, if you're a professional, you cannot make a complaint anonymously.
Not under 261 anymore. Under the Family Code, no.
Mhm.
That they did change that law. That's a different statute. But
Yeah, but it cannot be anonymous.
They used to allow
if you're
for it,
a
and they don't
professional
anymore.
If you're a professional, you got to get record of it, and the only way you can have record of it is if you use your name and your license, right? So it cannot be anonymous.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. I believe there was in a different part of
They
261.
won't even accept anonymous complaints anymore.
They won't even accept it
Yeah,
anymore.
they've stopped accepting them. Legislature banned them, basically.
Yeah, I know it's tough as a therapist because I hear the other side, especially if you're in a child custody case and, mom or dad is very, very angry and you're worried about retaliation. I get all that, but for the safety of the child, if that information comes to us, we have a duty. It's just part of our license.
Even CPS cases, they don't disclose the complainant's information to the people being investigated.
As a former CPS worker, I can tell you that is true, and yet it still gets out.
I won't dispute that is often the case, but it's not supposed to get out.
Any questions for Patrick? Okay, hearing none. Board, we are an hour and a half in. Does anyone need a break? Okay, then we are going to take a 5-minute break. We are out at exactly 10:30 a.m. We will reconvene at 10:35. Welcome back, everybody. It is 10:38 a.m. and we are now back in session. Item number 6, we need to discuss and elect a professional board member to serve on BHEC. This role has been fulfilled the past couple of years by Dr. Taylor. He's served with me, representing LPCs up on the BHEC board. Frankly, I'll stick my neck out for him. He does a fantastic job. He represents us well. He's always very knowledgeable, very prepared. Anything that's an LPC matter up at the BHEC level, he's the authority on it. Obviously, as our professional member. My thinking on the committee assignments, designating the professional members as the chairs, is that I was hoping that Dr. Taylor would continue at the BHEC level with us. And so he's not a committee chair, but this is something that we do need to discuss and that we do need to vote on today.
I motion that we reappoint Dr.
Second.
Taylor.
Okay, Dr. Amuna made a motion. Dr. Stubblefield seconded at the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. At this time, we will go ahead and vote. All in favor of the reappointment of Dr. Taylor to represent the LPCs on BHEC level, please raise your hand. All right, and that is unanimous. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. You're ours for one more year.
Do I get to accept, or can I say I don't want to do it? No. Okay.
Conscription.
I've hit
not volunteerism.
Once the gavel drops, it's official. So, thank you, Dr. Taylor. Enjoy serving with you at the BHEC level.
It is.
Let's do some more good work.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure to serve and continue to represent LPCs at Behavioral Executive Council, along with Daryl, who loves me there, I know. Do you really? Are you sure?
You're a good council member.
Okay. All right. Even though I call you too much.
All right, thank you. Moving on, number 7's licensing matters. Christina, I believe that we don't have any for today. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. How about number 8, examination matters? I know we were going to have some discussion regarding the jurisprudence exam.
Yes. So in your board packet materials, you do have the feedback from those who have taken the jurisprudence exam for their renewal period. Overall, again, everyone seems to enjoy the exam. Just as a refresher, a reminder kind of thing, I do want to give a big shout out, thank you to Diane Moore. She's one of the newest BHEC Ombudsman staff who is took over the JP exam and is helping getting that all cleared up. She has been able to get a couple updates completed that were needed, as well as identifying a couple of the questions that might need to go to committee to review so that we can get those updated or add to them kind of thing related to rule changes. So thank you again, Diane, for doing that. But overall, those are there for you all. Not many changes with that.
Any questions? Okay, hearing none. Item 9 is enforcement matters. We do have a SOA matter for discussion today, and I will have to recuse myself from discussion since I served on this ISC. I can still coordinate, though, correct? Or do I need to be completely out?
You just can't deliberate. You can't have a vote in it. But
Back. Okay. Patrick, can you present? Is it Patrick?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you present the matter, please?
Sure. So respondent Criselda Santos is before you today. She complaint was filed. This went obviously to an ISC and then to SOA. She failed to show up to the SOA hearing. We received a default and remand back to the agency. There's a proposed order in the board's materials. As you already said, Mr. Chair, you were a member of the ISC, so obviously recused from the voting. The alleged facts that the staff is proposing that the board proposed to the council to then enter the final order at the BHEC meeting in February are that she had instructed a supervisee to basically falsify case notes, complete case notes for other therapists, people that she had not seen. It was over 250 some odd counseling sessions for 60 different clients. And she sought medical information from her supervisees that was not relevant to her supervision, as well as she failed to cooperate with the council's investigation. So we did give her notice that the board would be reviewing this matter that came back from SOA, as well as the notice that BHEC would be reviewing it in February. So if she is in attendance, we would ask that she be permitted to address the board, but we don't anticipate her attending because she has not cooperated with the investigation and did not show up to the SOA hearing.
Patrick, just a question for clarification. The recommendation is revocation.
Revocation, yes.
But it says licensed professional counselor supervisor. So is it the entire license or just the supervisor's license?
If she's licensed as a supervisor, it would be the entire license.
Okay.
So, but including her supervisor status.
Okay, so the whole thing.
The whole thing, yeah.
Got it.
And I have a question with regard to not cooperating. Is it that you've received no communication from the
That's my understanding.
Counselor?
We've sent numerous notices, requests for information, ISC notice, the notice of the SOA proceeding, docketing the case, notice of the SOA hearing, and my understanding is that she is not. These notices have been sent to her by mail, certified mail, email, and we've heard nothing back. So
Yeah. And I just wanted that clarification of not responding at all.
that's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Chris,
Is she present?
Yeah, if you're on the Zoom call, can you raise your hand? I do not see the name, so I'm not sure if it's under another name. Do not see anybody raising their hand.
Okay. Board, you have to decide if you are going to agree with SOA's proposal for decision for revocation.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to revoke the license in full.
Okay, we do have a motion, and Dr. Stubblefield has a second on the motion. We do have a motion to uphold the proposed recommendation out of SOA. Is there any discussion on it? Okay, hearing none, at this time we will vote whether to agree with the proposal for decision from SOA, and for the record, I will note that I will be recused from this vote. So all in favor of agreeing to the recommendation from SOA for revocation, please raise your hand. Okay. The SOA decision is agreed to. Christina, I don't believe we have any other matters at this time.
Correct.
Okay. We'll move on to item number 10, rulemaking. Today we have up for consideration whether we want to adopt what came back from SOA on 681.53, child custody evaluations, and 681.114, licensing military service members and spouses. These are two that were done at the legislative level. We consider these the thou must rule changes, and do we have any discussion on them? And if it's okay, I'm going to take consideration of both of them together as opposed to separately, if that's okay. Okay. Any discussion regarding the changes?
I just believe last time, Mr. Chair, we asked if we were required to do this by law, and Daryl looked at us and said yes. And we said we want to follow the law. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Thou shalt do it.
Yeah. Any questions? Any discussion? This will be adoption. Can you give us should this pass, can you give us the next steps on when the changes are published and when they become effective?
It'll go for adoption at the BHEC meeting next month.
Okay. All right. All in favor of adoption 681.53 and 681.114, please raise your hand, signify. Okay. Then that is unanimous, and those are adopted and, like Daryl mentioned, sent back to BHEC. Anything else under rulemaking? We did mention that a couple things are ongoing, are getting sent back to the sausage will get made at the Rules Committee level, and so those are on our radar. But is there anything else that you would want brought up specifically for the Rules Committee to take a look at? All right, hearing none. Item 11, recommendations for agenda items for the next meeting. Anything other than what we've discussed today? I think everybody should expect for additional details regarding the new structures on ISCs, and also should expect what comes out of the two Rules Committee meetings that we have coming up.
And then not for our board, but Robert, for BHEC, I'm assuming we're still monitoring CE Broker and AI and emerging trends and technologies.
Okay. Brian.
You excused yourself from the case that you did. Will that go forward for if we're involved with that? We'll say we're involved, and do what you did. Okay.
Yes.
Just point of education. So,
yeah, that's a good, I didn't want to, discuss it too much, but it was a good example of when the staff felt as though this was a subject that a professional member, that a public member would be appropriate to render their decision on.
Do we need to add TRIO to our agenda?
Not yet.
Not
yeah,
yet.
we'll be looking at that as staff and waiting for more direction from the governor's office.
Okay. Before we adjourn, any other final comments, final questions?
Mr. Chair, I had one other thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about the ISC process. We are not the sole keepers of the flame of wisdom on how to do that best. What I would like for the public to do is, and I'm not saying this facetiously, I am genuinely asking, if anybody has any ideas for why we are seeing such a significant increase in the number of complaints, we're all ears. Because if there was a Bible up here, I could put one hand on it and raise the other one and say, I don't know what is driving the increased number of complaints. If you've got any ideas on why that is or on how to deal with it, Robert, Patrick, and I are all open ears. We're happy to visit with you about it. Shoot us an email through the Contact Us page, the Executive Leadership, is it Executive and Administrative Leadership, something like that. It comes directly to Robert and I. So if you've got any ideas, questions about that, don't be shy, because we could use a little bit of help here. So I'm asking everybody out there in TV land, this is your shot. Need a little help. So help. It's not a rhetorical question.
Nope. I appreciate that, Daryl. Just a great example of how this board tries to tackle these issues. We've identified a problem, and it's like, it's this little cancer, and you want to cut it out before it becomes a bigger issue. And so we strive for transparency. We strive to be effective. Just a good example of, for years and years we've talked about, hey, things are so much better than they used to be. We're keep improving everything. Well, we noticed something that's trending in the wrong direction, and we want to tackle it because we want to, be the best board, the best version of ourselves that we can be. So, that being said, I will take a question from Christina, apparently. Yes.
I don't know if it's in response to Daryl's invitation, but we did have someone in the audience just raise their hand. We don't normally take comment at this moment.
Can you encourage them to email?
Yes. So, Mr. Drozd, if you would please reach out to us through the contact form, we'd love to get your feedback.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Thank you, Dr. Amuna. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Board, all in favor of adjournment, please raise your hand. And I will say thank you for your thoughtful discussion today. Thank you for your service to the great state of Texas, and we're adjourned.